Kylian Mbappe could have never played football if he grew up in the U.S., in my opinion.
Being from the States, you have to learn how things are over there because MLS is much different than the Premier League, and you're almost stepping into a different realm.
With the 2026 World Cup coming here and a new generation of fans start to become to discover the game, there's no telling where the game's going to be 10, 15, 20 years.
One game changed my life, and that's all it ever takes.
Back again, box to box, here with another episode, another set of soccer stories for our growing audience here at GOLZtv. And I can't even tell you how excited I am for today's episode. We have a return guest. We probably only had maybe 2 or 3 in the history of this show so far. Every single time they're bangers, we get updates on what they're working on, updates on opinions that they have around this growing, beautiful game here stateside. And today is no exception. I am joined by Eli Lesser of the newly formed brand, Eli Lesser TV. I like it, man. I like it. Flex all you want. I think that at the end of the day, this episode is going to be intriguing, entertaining, everything in between. And look, man, you've been working on so much over these last few months. It was a no-brainer for me to have you back on the show today, Eli. How are you doing today, my man?
Dude, I'm doing great. As we talked before, we were talking about where our teams stand currently, and I couldn't feel better about that. Things could always be better, but nothing's ever perfect. So it's as good as it can be on that front. I'm enjoying watching soccer again. I'm enjoying going to matches again because, last year that felt, that got me burnt out very quickly into the season. Just, when your team's not performing well, it kind of sucks when this is your life. It sucks the life out of you a little bit. So it feels better to be better this year. And, to the Dallas fans out there, as someone who's been through what you guys are currently going through, it gets better in the end.
I'm telling myself that every day. Every day I'm telling myself that, look, this could be a one-off season. I'm hoping it's a one-off chunk of the season and we get to turn things around. But, that's me being overly optimistic as I usually am. Well, look, man, either way, tonight's not about me or my love-hate relationship with my team. It is definitely about you. And look, man, there's so much that we have to get to today. For those who did not tune into the original Eli Lesser episode, I encourage you to go back, check that out. There are stories there that we probably won't be able to touch on today because we touched on them before, but they're still massively important for anybody who's thinking about breaking into this space as a creator, as a new fan, whatever it may be, a lot of value there. But for those who did not tune in, let's bring them into the fold a little bit. And even though this is, a return episode, a part 2, I still want to ask the question that we always ask because it's still wildly important for me. And I got a feeling you have a slightly different answer today. So let's kick it off. Eli, who are you today?
That's a really wild question because I'm in that weird phase of my life now. And I think I was in this phase last time. I forgot when exactly we did our interview. But I feel even more so where I'm in that awkward phase in my life where I just got out of college not even a year ago still. But it's almost been a year to where I've spent enough time out where it doesn't feel like a summer vacation anymore. And it's confusing because I don't, usually a job title or something kind of defines who you are to people and stuff, and not having that necessarily is weird. And I'd be lying to you if I said I thought, or I wasn't expecting myself to be in a position somewhere by now. I fully expected myself to be, and that's not how it works all the time. And things happen at their own pace. So it's very weird to think of who I am. But first of all, I guess I am a content creator. I'd like to say I'm more of a fan these days, and who makes content. And that's kind of where I stand. This is my full-time life. But I do feel like I've kind of shifted a bit more to being a fan first, because I want to focus on what's important to me in this space.
I love that, man. That's a great answer. And look, I totally hear where you're coming from in terms of where you want to be, where any one of us wants to be, right? I think a lot of people resonate with that. You have this massive, massive goal. And I'll be honest, I'm honestly kind of a little bit surprised you haven't reached it yet. I think it's not due to anything on your side. I think you create more content around growing this game and let's say even Major League Soccer than I think most people have up to this point. So there's a lot of sweat equity you have with this game and what you've built up in your own brand. Anybody who's been on the internet in the age of 2024 can see that, right? But no matter what, man, I think that there's a lot more to that story. We'll kind of peel that back layer by layer in the interview today. But I love that response, and I think we're gonna dig into it in a really cool way. And then speaking of that, right? Last time we met, if we had to put a timeline on it, I think it was about a year ago on this show in terms of the first interview. A lot has changed since then, right? Back then, you were still This Week in MLS, right? You were still working on this brand as a creator that you have been kind of forging year over year. You plugged so much time and effort into that. And I still remember, like it was yesterday when you were kind of teasing on socials that there was a big shift coming. That you were preparing your audience for it, and I have to imagine you were pretty nervous about it. I had to imagine that you were maybe torn about how your community that you built up for all these years was going to respond to that change. I like to think it's worked out pretty well, but for those who may not know what I'm talking about, this rebrand from This Week in MLS to Eli Lesser TV, I think it was a fantastic move. But talk the audience through it a little bit. Why the breakaway from the previous brand? What does being known as Eli Lesser TV today help you accomplish?
Yeah, so there's a ton of reasons. So I actually wasn't too nervous about the change as much as you would expect, because I actually had this change in mind July of last year, and I had planned that idea of a rebrand for 6 months basically, because certain things happened with me and MLS that maybe left a sour taste in my mouth. And the league is my favorite league and everything, but I wanted to disassociate. I was tired of being fully associated with MLS, where everything I do is, about MLS, talked about MLS. And also, there's so much more to the game outside of MLS. My biggest mission has always been to grow the sport in America, and there's more to soccer in America than just MLS. MLS is my, bread and butter. It's where I come from, and it's always going to be my favorite. That's not going to change. But I wanted to allow myself to have other opportunities. Also, there was a whole thing with me, and I hated how oftentimes, because my main platform's Instagram, I'd be labeled as a fan page, an MLS fan page. And I view myself a bit, I'm not a serious person at all, but I view myself more seriously than a fan page.
Sure.
I wanted to focus it more on, me as a creator and less of, I deliver MLS news every day, that was This Week in MLS. And also there's a whole thing where I can't own the name This Week in MLS because, I don't have written consent from MLS to even have that username in the first place. If I wanted to make an LLC of myself, I can't use that name because it has MLS in it. That being said, though, I mean, the shift's been great. Being able to cover other leagues, people have seen me consistently maybe talk more about the Bundesliga than some other leagues. For me and that stuff, it's more, I'm just covering what I like, what I'm watching. And I think that's very liberating in a sense where I don't feel like I have to cover every single topic. I still pretty much do cover the big stuff that happens in MLS every week, less about the match days than I'd like to. But because I've been going to soccer matches every weekend, and that's been a goal of mine this year, I haven't been able to watch every single MLS match, only really highlights and stuff. I used, this point last year, I was a senior in college and I spent my Saturday nights watching MLS 360 and nothing else like that. That's where I was. And I'm kind of tired of just like staying in my house, I work 2 feet from my bed. That's awful. I need to be out more. I need to see things, and I want to, connect with why I'm doing it in the first place, which is why, I'm never going to apologize about, going to the Galaxy match over watching a big MLS match on my TV. I'm never going to apologize about going to an Orange County match. And this weekend, I'm actually doing a video on the LA Force, and a NISA team.
NISA, that's awesome.
So, I want to showcase everything, first that SoCal has to offer, in terms of the sport as much as I can. But these are all things that, went into the rebrand. It just made sense. And, it's not a, some followers were like, don't leave MLS, bro. I'm like, I'm not leaving MLS. And I was also frustrated, and this is like a very minor thing, but like it really frustrated me where like a lot of people assume because I had MLS in my name and I always talk positively about MLS that I was paid off by MLS, or like they were paying me. People thought I was an industry plant by MLS, which is crazy. I never thought I'd be like seen as like a musician in this space. So it's very interesting how that thing. But my thoughts on MLS, I won't say have changed completely to the negative. I think I just have more nuance when it comes to the league, because I see, I'm willing to confess the bad and ugly. And just because I'm willing to confess the bad and ugly doesn't mean I hate MLS all of a sudden. Because I think that's a big thing, especially in the online community, especially Twitter, which I'm kind of off of these days. I just kind of post and leave. But there's this weird thing where, if you're super pro MLS, you talk positively about the league. Oh, you're such a shill. If you say anything negative about it, oh, you're just a hater. Oh, I bet you have pro rel for USA in your bio. Like it's very weird. But for me, I criticize some MLS specifically because I love it so much and I want it to be the best it can be. And it's not about me just trying to crap on it. I will say that it's unfortunate in this space where the more negative you speak about MLS, the more likes you get. And usually the more I talk about like League MX and stuff, the more likes I get or whatever, even if the comments are negative. Like I do have to feed the beast sometimes. That is the algorithm. And that's been something I've kind of studied as of late, especially with this rebrand. But it's weird because, I just know like right now I need to grow as much as I can. And sometimes that's a good thing. And sometimes that's not a good thing for me. But yeah, sorry, that was a long answer.
No,
but...
no. I think you went down so many rabbit holes there that I could just kind of pick through each one. But I agree with you, at least on the latest part regarding the motivation for the rebrand, how people are perceiving it, the public in general. Look, I don't believe anybody should ever aim to appease the community, right? But especially when you don't have very deep personal connections to so many of them. So I imagine you knew there was going to be scrutiny, right? And you were probably already dealing with that anyway, right? Just again, being this week in MLS, the pro MLS guy. And I agree wholeheartedly. I'm right there with you in terms of sitting on the fence. I think I love Major League Soccer because I've tuned into it for so long. But I also know that, there's so much of the, I don't want to call it the grassroots, but so much of the professional scene that doesn't get as much publicity that fans should be aware of because it's right there in their backyards. And I think you've handled this rebrand from my perspective extremely well, despite what feedback might look like from the community one way or the other. Let me ask you this though. How much of this decision to rebrand is tied to the fact that you were hoping for that position, either from the league or someone that operates within the league, and that didn't get a chance to really work out your way, at least not as of yet? Is it tied to that, or is it really just about doing what you want to do?
It's both. I'd say it's more than I'd like to let everyone believe, because I've had slaps in the face, and it's hard to not be affected by that type of stuff. As much as you try to be professional about it. And I think I don't shit talk people, or sorry for saying that.
You can curse. It's totally fine.
Okay. Yeah. I don't trash talk people online or anything. I've never openly grieved anything that's happened to me. It's just been very quiet, but it has gone to me in ways. And I'm at a point where maybe I realize that, while I want to cover MLS, maybe working for MLS might not be the best destination for me because of how they go about certain things. And it's unfortunate, but it's also, I don't want that door to close on me either. It might already be shut for all I know, but I don't want to close any doors. But I want to open more than one. Because for a while it was just me trying to go down a narrow hallway into the back alley of MLS and get in, through that door. That's kind of what it was. But there's so many other doors that can be open in other spaces for me to be able to talk about what I like and what I dislike, because I think that's a big thing. But it's also, I think the biggest thing is that, talking about what I want and opening doors elsewhere, because, one of my dreams has always been to take a tour of Germany and German soccer. And, it's like, hey, if I cover more Bundesliga, hopefully one day, I could get paid to do that, And
the Bundesliga is actually, I would say, much more like open to working with independent content creators, right? Right, that you prove that you can build an audience for, that's got to be on their radar, wanting to get more in front of a Western audience through independent content creation. I think of like guys like Jack Grimsey, for example, right? Who's doing a great job right now with, the Leverkusen stuff that he's doing. I think it's a smart play. I really do. I think it's a smart play what you're doing. So if that does take place, right? Let's say it's Bundesliga, let's say it's USL or anybody else. If those doors do open, I imagine you're jumping at those opportunities and not waiting around for MLS.
If I get an opportunity to cover this sport for a decent living, like that's absolutely, I'm going to take it no matter what it is, no matter what league it is. Send me to American Samoa and I'll cover, them, I saw that film. Just send me anywhere, if I can make a decent living doing what I love, that's the goal for anyone. Right.
Yeah. The dream.
And, I don't believe that you have to sacrifice one for the other. And that's, I think, where part of my drive for what I do comes from. A lot of people may get to, and I don't want to say I'm above anyone because I'm absolutely not, but they might get to my point and they might be very like complacent. They might be very content with where that is, but I'm not making the money that I want to yet, like nowhere near that. I'm not making enough money to leave my parents' house.
Sure.
So it's like, I'm not going to stop till I get to that point, and I'm never going to stop. But, there's these goals that I really want to hit within these next couple of years leading up to the World Cup. And, as much as, I want to reach a certain level professionally, it's also, I want to reach certain levels in my life where I can, move out. I want to move out with my best friend and get a certain car or whatever. It's not like I'm not like carried by money, but, it's definitely something I want to have, be able to do both. I mean, I want to create a perfect life for myself. Who doesn't? I want to be able to make money and do what I love making that money. And I don't want to have to, sacrifice, what I love to make a bunch of money. And I don't want to sacrifice a bunch of money to do what I love. I want to find a way to do both. And I'm very stubborn. So I'm going to make sure that happens. But
hey, I respect the hell out of that, man. I mean, seriously. I mean, being stubborn in scenarios like this is probably the best trait to have, if we're being honest. Overall, was there anything negative? Like when you thought about, and community reaction aside, right? I imagine there were some haters or whatever the case may be. Like you talked about it a little bit before, but from your perspective, you thought about this for a long time, 6 months before you ever actually decided to go through with it. I think you were very calculated in your approach, but you had to probably feel some kind of way of letting a brand go that you'd spent years building up. And even if it is something as straightforward as moving from This Week in MLS to your name, that's still something new for you, for everybody who's tuning into your content week in and week out. There have to be at times, right, with decisions this big, just thoughts that run through your mind of what could go wrong, what's going to happen negatively as part of all of this decision making. I mean, was there anything you were really concerned about on a deeper level?
I'm actually not sure if I was concerned about anything. I think I guess the stubbornness is coming in. I was like so but I was so laser focused on one thing. And sometimes that's how I operate, where I'm so focused on one thing and I'm looking straight forward. I don't see what's to the right or to the left of me. And that's just me in general. Sometimes I even walk into trees while I'm looking at the tree. That's just been my life. I'm a spaz, but I don't know if there were any complete negatives, because I actually do have I do have ideas for me. I don't think This Week in MLS is actually dead. It's just kind of put aside from now. And I've had ideas for how I would want it to come back. But I don't want my whole brand to be about it. And it's always going to be a part of me, to people. And yeah, for me, I have an idea of what I would want This Week in MLS to look like in the future. But I just need the right situation for that. And I don't think it would be, in my current situation. It's more, I have aspirations outside of what I'm currently doing content wise. I feel like what I do content wise, while it might be good to some, it's not anywhere near showcasing all the abilities I believe I have. And, how am I supposed to know what abilities I have if I'm not, testing myself?
I agree wholeheartedly. I have this firm belief, actually, that this is why I respect your stubbornness, if you want to call it that. I think there's a grittiness to it that others, I don't want to have a boomer moment on this show, but I feel like, you know, I'm decently older than you are, right? And, you know, probably what, if you just graduated college, somewhere between 8 and 10 years older. I'm 33. So it's just one of those things where, you know, to see someone with as much ambition as you have at your age, with the unknowns that exist in your life and the ambitions that you have to really kind of make those unknowns known for yourself, I think it's some pretty uncommon. And I think that, you know, with that said, you know, I feel like you've been able to bounce into this new direction very fluidly, very seamlessly. And I think that's just credit to how you've thought about making this move and really what's in it for you. And so I want to take this conversation in a different direction in terms of, you know, what's come since this decision. And that's really, you know, this I saw obviously the breadth of content that you're bringing to the table now, right? You're covering everything from USL to Bundesliga to you know, of course, MLS stuff is still there, but it's, from my opinion or my perspective, I see more talks about Olivier Giroud coming to LAFC versus like what LAFC is producing week in and week out in terms of results, right? So it's changed a little bit. But one of the more eye-opening things for me, and I don't know why I didn't see it coming, because they are in your backyard. You know, you got involved with USL stuff pretty quickly. You become, you know, a minority owner in a club, and the decision to do that, to be that bought in, and to be public about it, especially when you think about your core audience being so MLS focused, there had to be some, you know, thought process to that and how you decided to go about it. And now you're creating content. I mean, you were just at an OCSC game, and you mentioned now LA Force on the horizon in terms of the next video. Man, what made you decide that this is what you want to be doing, and this is kind of where you want to invest time and some funds as well?
Yeah, it's very funny how things happen at certain moments, and a lot of things, good things, may happen at the same time. And it's very funny with the Orange County thing. So they're a club that I've always appreciated from afar. Throughout the years, it really started with very randomly. They did a collaboration with an Orange County punk band, a legendary Orange County punk band, and I spent a lot of time actually in my high school years in the Orange County punk scene. And, you know, when they did that collab, I was like, this is amazing. I've always wanted to tie my love for the music I like with soccer. And
That's awesome.
I noticed that a couple years ago. And then, you know, there was a situation with Orange County SC and the LA Galaxy that was not so great, where Chris Klein, the president at the time, who we protested heavily, tried to take over Orange County Stadium, basically to kick them out and put the MLS Next Pro team there. That's why they're Ventura County, because they couldn't get Orange County. So, and that was what led, you know, what added to the fuel that started the fire of the Klein out protest. That was just one of the many things that built up. And, you know, I felt really bad for Orange County during that time. I was like, I don't want to see them go under because of this or anything. And then what happened is around October, November, when I had already had this rebrand in mind, they actually reached out to me about the ownership thing. Because what they were doing was opening up ownership to fans, and which is something that they do in the Bundesliga, which is really cool. And they wanted to get, you know, some OC legends and then also just some soccer people in the SoCal area involved in this to help promote the club and be owners of the club, and, you know, to use our platforms to spread it. And, you know, at first they were like, we really like you, but we can't have you if your name's This Week in MLS. And I was like, funny you should say that, because I'm actually planning on a rebrand. And I wanted, you know, that to be a big thing. One of the big things that came with my rebrand. So like a lot of the things that you see, like I usually don't do something and then have it come out the next week. You know, if I have an idea, it's going to take a lot of time. And I like to make sure the idea is as perfect as it can be, as foolproof as it can be until, you know, it's announced. So although I made the announcement in February, it was months of talking about it. And, you know, with Orange County and USL, you know, it's something I've grown to love and appreciate. The club is just such a good vibe. I just feel welcome and at home when I'm there. And I feel the same way with the Galaxy, of course. But it's just a different vibe when you're at a USL club. You know, everyone kind of feel like you're working on something bigger, which is ironic because, you know, it's the second division.
Yeah.
But you feel like you're all fighting for something bigger, and it's just the energy from the supporters that I've met from Orange County and around the club. The president, Dan, is a crazy awesome dude. And I've just really grown to love the club. And I've been to, 2 matches so far out of 4. Unfortunately, I'm missing the one this weekend because of the LA Force match, but I'm going to be there as often as I can. It's very funny. One of the big dreams that I had, because I'm a petty bitch sometimes, is one of the dreams I had for Orange County SC was to beat LAFC in the Open Cup. And we have a chance to, because if we beat Loudoun United and LAFC beats Las Vegas Lights, we'll be playing LAFC at the Bank, and I will be there no matter what. Like, if that happens and we take down LAFC, I've been very quiet in terms of drama online with like LAFC fans because I just don't have time for drama anymore. Like, I don't participate. But you're going to see a nasty side of me if Orange County beats LAFC. Oh my God.
Absolute scenes. Scenes.
But I've learned I do not trash talk before the result anymore. It's always going to be after. I keep my mouth shut until after.
We've all been burned. We've all been burned on that, myself included. I'm not immune to that at all. I think it's as fans we learned, right? And man, I honestly I applaud you not engaging in the El Tráfico debates and the banter, because
it was bad this year.
Some of the fans were wild on the timeline. Like I honestly couldn't believe like people digging up, pictures of fans wearing LA Galaxy gear for like years ago. I'm like, dude, the age of the internet cannot be like this. Like, it just like you can't do anything. There's receipts for everything, and I don't know. It's gotten really crazy. But first off, just to comment on like the potential matchup there. If that matchup happens, which Loudoun United is no slouch, right? So like that's going to be a tough matchup. I haven't watched much of the Lights this season, but I think that if there's an opportunity for a cup set, right? Like that's going to be it. And taking out LAFC would be insane if Las Vegas Lights were to do it. But I kind of hope they don't, right? So we get this insane Cali matchup. It would be wild.
Well, for me, it's a win-win because Vegas is my favorite place to visit, and Orange County would be away no matter what the result is.
Okay.
So we either go to Vegas and I get to go to Vegas, or we get to play LAFC. So for me, it's a win-win.
Yeah.
I would much rather beat LAFC than the Lights. But I'd be happy regardless because Orange County isn't actually going to Vegas till October, and I plan to go then, but I'd like to go sooner. So yeah. I'd be fine no matter what.
Hell yeah, no, easily. I mean, it sounds like a good trip either way. And again, it'd be absolute scenes if LAFC were to exit to someone like Orange County, just because again, every time there's a USL upset over an MLS team, it just creates shambles on the timeline. It's awesome, and that's coming from again someone who has a massive love for an MLS club. But yeah, man. With that said, I mean, I imagine when they reached out to you, there was, okay, this seems kind of cool. You're already aware of the club. You're aware of USL. You're not as bought in as you were at MLS at the time. But for those who haven't tuned in, for those who are maybe seeing USL Championship on CBS for the first time this season, or just again catching wind of some of the hype that's really coming from the second division of the pyramid. If they're teetering, if they're like an FC Dallas fan like myself who doesn't have much to really cheer for at the moment, and we want a breath of fresh air when it comes to the soccer we're tuning into, why is the USL Championship, or maybe the USL in general, just that breath of fresh air they might be looking for?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's different for everyone. For me, I'm a big support local guy. And I think that's a big thing with USL and very appealing, especially because USL is in a lot of markets that MLS isn't.
Yep.
So I think that's a great thing, and it's unfortunate when they try to be in they share the same market. But for me, Orange County is the closest USL Championship club to me, although I don't live in Orange County, I live adjacent. But for USL, it's super. I don't know how to say certain things about USL without it sounding like a diss, because I don't mean it like a diss. But it's almost fun to have the intimate vibe where it's smaller communities coming together. You feel like how maybe an English Championship fan feels. I see how the vibes are there, where it's like it doesn't always have to be about what's happening on the field. And I think that's something I've realized as I've gone on, where my love for the game almost doesn't come from what happens on the field. And what I want to grow in America isn't necessarily what happens on the field. I'm so focused on, the culture of it. And I love that aspect of it more than anything. Supporter culture. To me, I want to make sure supporter culture in America is the draw. And I think USL is doing a great job at that, in tapping into markets where soccer isn't necessarily present, or it is, but they don't have a club to cheer for. And I love trying to bring in a community to support their local club. So that's kind of the draw. If you don't live near a USL Championship club, I hope you live near someone. I'm sorry if you live in like Idaho, Montana, that area, but maybe there'll be a club there soon, hopefully. But I always just love the understanding different markets that I didn't know before, learning about different cities and what the culture means. And also USL has the best kits in the game. So, even if you're just like an apparel guy, that's an easy way. That's probably the easiest way to get into USL. You see a kit you like. Orange County has some great kits this year. Just saying we've got great ones. The County Roads kit is my absolute favorite.
Yeah.
The USL's always been ahead of the kit game. And if you're tired of the same Adidas templates, check out some USL.
Yeah, seriously. Actually, Birmingham Legion just dropped one today that is absolute fire. I
don't
loved
think I've seen that one yet.
Yeah, man, looks really, really good. Go check it out. And anybody in the audience, go check that one out. It's fire. I will touch on a point you just mentioned there too. Outside of the fact that it's like support local, and I agree, supporter culture is massive. It almost brings a level of closeness to the game that massive franchise sports leagues just can't really offer or replicate. But I'll also say this was the product on the field, because this is the argument I get into most with fans about is, for those who are like, well, I watch MLS because it's the best product available in this country. I can't watch anything else because it doesn't feel the same. And I'm like, well, like if you're an American football fan, look at the culture college football has created versus what the NFL has. To me, it's night and day. Go watch a Kent State football game, and it'll change your mind about what it means to those fans, to that community. And I guarantee you there are NFL fans that won't ever be able to mimic what these students and these alumni and everybody else are doing at these games. And so, that's the analogy I always use. There's a fervent culture within local soccer, local professional soccer that I just feel like for whatever reason, depending on the team in the market, that certain MLS franchises cannot replicate for one reason or another. So I think you nailed it spot on in terms of the why. And I think the why should also hopefully encourage others out there just to check it out. Go if you're biased towards it up to this point, but you haven't seen a game, go watch it. And the beauty of it now is the USL Championship has at least a percentage of their matches on CBS now moving forward. So a very, very exciting time to be involved with that aspect of the American professional pyramid. So I love it, man. I love everything that you're doing on that front. Let me ask you, because I think that every time I bring you onto this show, I got to get some opinions. I got to get some takes from you on where you think a lot of this stuff goes. I feel like we're at a tipping point right now when it comes to the growth of the game, decisions that some of these leagues have to make. MLS is creating its own hot water at times, and we can have a whole conversation another day about that. But there is it's a very interesting time for USL in general. And as someone who now has a very vested interest in a specific club, I imagine the future of the club and the league within it that it operates within has to casually cross your mind from time to time. Right now, I have a lot of conversations with other USL fans and even the championship, right? Because we're partnered with them here at GOLZtv about like what the future of the league looks like. How do they try to compete with MLS in certain ways? And they'll never have that conversation about competition, but they do think certain agenda items like the age-old, debate around pro-rel, right? Promotion, relegation, and whether or not it's going to enter, USL. It probably will never enter MLS for a number of reasons, but I think USL has some very interesting wheels around it potentially. I know you've heard about the vote that they're planning to have and how that's going to go down. What are your thoughts on it? Do you have a take either way? Now, considering that you're not solely tied to MLS with your content, you've expanded a little bit. Do you have any thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, the whole MLS versus USL thing is always going to be very interesting. I don't really see them as competitors with each other because unfortunately, I don't think there is quite a competition between MLS and USL as much as people want to say. Just given, we talk about markets, USL is in markets that MLS isn't. However, they are in smaller markets. So just that alone, it's going to, you're not going to be able to level that playing field in terms of, competing for eyes and viewers. But it is interesting to see, where the USL is going in terms of the pro rel stuff. Hopefully it happens. I think it would be really cool. I don't think that's going to all of a sudden make everyone a USL fan and not support MLS anymore. That's not going to happen. But as much as, the people online want to say it will, but I would want to see how that happens. And maybe MLS could see the reception of that and maybe consider something. But unfortunately, I don't see the two leagues ever working together, which is, I think, everyone's ideal situation where, USL Championship becomes the second division to MLS, but that's not a reality that's ever going to happen. Pro rel for MLS will only ever be if MLS creates a second league and then there's no third league. I just see maybe 18 teams in the first league, 18 in the second.
Sure.
In the future. That's kind of where I would see that. But no, I mean, it's something I would want to see tested out. As far as I'm concerned with Orange County, they're not really worried about, getting relegated because we believe that we're going to, stay up no matter what.
Yep.
But it will be interesting to see, and it will definitely push certain clubs. And, that's what we want from MLS is, to get some clubs that maybe don't care as much or don't invest as much to care more and invest more. And, hopefully, we see that with USL, and hopefully if it happens, when it happens, it'll be super successful. And, the more success that comes with it, for me, the more that success that comes in any division of soccer in America, I do believe it benefits everyone in certain ways, whether it's, more passive or right there. Everything that happens with the national team trickles down to MLS and USL and all of that. Even things like Premier League fan fests and what I think, if La Liga has matches in, the US, I think that's going to trickle down to all the leagues here in America and benefit them in a way. A lot of people are like, oh, they're going to steal all the fans. No, they're not. They're going to create new fans. And I think that's kind of where I see the sport heading. And, we saw it happen with the last World Cup that was in America. It created MLS in a way. So it's, that's what we want to see with this coming World Cup. And everyone's trying to invest themselves into US soccer these next few years, whether they are American or they're from a different league or anything. So, I think all of that will benefit everyone across the pyramid. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, same here, man. A rising tide raises all ships. There's a reason that's a saying. I agree with you, actually, despite all of the hot takes around, like, what having play, Europe official regular season European matches played here in the States. And I think there's a bigger concern for like those fans in Europe, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the concern, I think, from like global football standpoint is like, oh, what happens to the experience those fans have week in and week out if like Barcelona is playing Valencia here in the States? It's like, well, I mean, the US fans are going to love it. I don't think it's going to take the fans away from any league that we tune into regularly. I think you're just going to create new fans because they're going to experience something they've never seen on this side of the world before. So I agree with you wholeheartedly, man. But going back to the pro rel question, it's just more of hot take from my perspective. I don't know if it's by itself enough to help America or American soccer reach its full potential. I just think that that's such a complex problem with multiple layers and we have sports here that capture the attention of mass fans in a way that other countries just don't. So there's like a lot of nuances there, but I agree with you. I think MLS only does it if they grow to 40 teams, they split them in the middle, 20 and 20, and then maybe there's a closed version of it. But USL has some real interesting opportunities, and I think it can only be a good thing for USL, in my opinion. I don't know if they have to start with the bottom of the period and work their way up to the championship, but there's a lot of fans out there that believe that, if Pro Rel were to be implemented, it would create a scenario where the USL would be truly the backbone of American soccer, and MLS would kind of be in their own bubble. They would be doing their own thing and kind of going from there.
It would be in a traditional football sense. And as you mentioned, that you don't think it's going to necessarily be the best thing, or, it's going to be the greatest thing that makes American soccer elite or anything. I agree. For me, Pro Rel isn't my priority. While I like the idea of it, I think it'd be great. It's not like the oh, if we don't ever get pro rel, US soccer is never going to be elite or anything, because that's just not how sports work in America. I always look through things from an American lens as well, and what's successful in those leagues. And that's why, MLS will always be top dog in that regard. But for me, it's all about how much money is getting invested and how much money is allowed to be spent on the sport in the country. I think that's the biggest priority on all levels, and especially in MLS right now. It's allowing ambition to thrive. I think that's my biggest concern with MLS and where I want to see it go. And just I'm not saying abolish the salary cap, abolish all DP rules and everything, but I do think ambition should be rewarded in this country, and I'd like to see a shift in how that works. I'm not necessarily saying, oh, we need to have, let teams like, I don't want to become a league where the same team wins every single year. But I would, I do think there's ways where, MLS might be holding itself back. And when MLS holds itself back, it does hold US soccer back.
Yeah.
That's just how it is, where I say, trickle down effect, that's how that happens. But yeah, that's kind of where I stand on that. And I think, the more we're able to invest and put into the sport in America, the best it's going to be. That's how that stuff works,
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly, man. And look, I think your newly founded Eli Lesser TV brand is, in all honesty, man, going to benefit from it every step of the way, just because now you've opened yourself up to so many more opportunities through USL, through MLS, through European soccer, whatever it may be. I think you're just going to be along for the ride in the best way possible. But just hearing myself say those things, everything that you're covering, man, anyone, again, like I said before, the top of the show, anyone who's paid attention to the soccer space on the timeline understands most likely how hard you work, how much time you're putting in, man. Like as we get closer to like the wrap up for this show, I mean, I'm personally just curious because I'm a hustler myself, and I always respect the hell out of anyone who is even remotely matching, I think, what the work ethic I bring to what any given day. What's the single biggest driving factor for you at this time? Because I feel like you're in a very interesting time career-wise, right? You're almost at a tipping point now that you have the rebrand underway. But there's got to be something on the horizon that you feel like you're working towards. What's that one thing?
I guess it was kind of the things that I was talking about earlier, and it's weird. I hate to put a dollar amount on things, but there's like a certain financial goal where I'm like, if I could get this much, if I could be making this much doing this and being in this situation, I have a manifestation list that I look at every morning of just like my perfect world, even though nothing's ever going to be perfect. And even when I get to those things, I'm not going to be like, wow, I have the perfect life. It's when you build the next set of goals. But for me, I just look at that manifestation list. And also, I had some maybe not so great news today, and it did involve, work stuff. And when stuff like that happens, at first you're like, man, is this worth it? Is this grind that I'm doing worth it? But then you realize, I don't want to be doing anything else. I easily could have gone and like try to do like a finance job. I had a finance minor in college, and I hated every single one of those classes, but I took it, one, because my dad made me, and two, because I was like, this, I guess, is a backup plan. But I'm like, the stubbornness is like, I don't want to have a backup plan. I don't want to be doing anything else. And if I'm not at least working hard at what I want to be doing, then, what's the point? That's kind of a big thing for me. And even then, it's so funny where, you might say I'm working hard, or, I'm grinding and everything. Sometimes, a lot of the time, I don't even feel like I'm working hard enough. And that's something I've had to teach myself along the way, because I was rather lazy at certain points, especially early college and stuff. I was at a kind of a low point mentally my freshman year, and then COVID hit, which was, I hate to be cringe and say, because so many people lost loved ones and stuff, but like for me, COVID was the best thing that ever happened to me. Where that's when I started making videos in the first place. I was just like writing. But I had a whole mentality change during that time. And, it's just, I have goals in mind, and, I have to keep going until I get to those goals. And then, but I also need to understand, once I get to those goals, I can't, stop there. That's when I create new goals. And, yeah. So if anyone ever is feeling unmotivated, just like, I literally have it on my notes at my manifestations list. I'm not going to show it to you, because, it's cringe to say out loud certain things. But
That's fair.
Especially because it involves romantic stuff as well. But um,
Hey, manifest it the best way possible,
yeah,
man. Like,
I
again,
manifest everything in my life,
I
not
love
just
it, bro. I
career
love it.
goals. But yeah, it's just, if you're kind of in a place where you think you know what you want to do, or you kind of have goals, just write them all down and look at them every single day when you're feeling kind of down, or if you're questioning yourself. And I question myself 24/7, if I'm
Yeah.
working 24/7, I'm questioning everything all the time. And for me, it's the fear that drives me. The fear of failure that really, really gets me going and gets me working towards things. And it usually picks me up. Usually when I hit a bit of a lull, or I get a little burnt out, I used to get like really down on myself during those times. But always have those times led to better times right after. So it sucks how life can be a roller coaster. But once you feel like you're hitting a low point, that's usually a good sign, because that means for me, at least in my life, where every time I've hit a low point, it's gone right back up immediately. And unfortunately, it also happens the opposite way, where I'm hitting a high point and it goes right down and humbles you. Getting humbled is a great thing, as much as I hate to say it, because
Yeah.
I get pissed off. But that's just how life is. Like, nothing's ever gonna go perfectly. But you could just work to make it as close to it as possible.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I couldn't agree more. And I think, just to even kind of not necessarily to one up what you were saying in terms of like writing things down and sort of self-manifesting where you think you're going to go. Something I've got really into, because I think, the last few years, kind of like not too unlike yourself. I actually, for the first time ever, I think the episode's out there now. I have only done one show as a creator in my career where I've gotten really personal about just some of the mental battles I've had to overcome. It's out there now. It's floating out there. But what I've done since then has been, you mentioned having like this manifestation journal where you're kind of, manifesting your future on a personal level. I have a gratitude journal.
Mm.
And I like to really count my blessings to an extent every day, because it's really easy to lose sight of it. It's really
Oh,
easy to be like, oh, I'm not where I want to be. So you just become ungrateful for all the things that you do have that others wish that they had. Others wish they were in a position that you were. I'll be honest. I think there's tons of creators out there who really wish I was Eli Lesser. I wish I had that kind of brand. I wish I could create content the way he does. I wish I had the audience. I wish I had a community I could just shift in one direction or another. I think that you have so much going for you, man, and I can't help but just stand on the sidelines and be impressed. And I think that there are others like that, who really want what you've built, despite the fact that you're not even close to the finish line from your perspective. You're as hungry as ever. That's what I respect. That's why I wanted to have you back on, man. I think it makes all the sense in the
yeah.
world. With that said, I feel like this was kind of my way of indicating that to this growing audience that Eli is an example in this broader space, that you are someone that I see on the sidelines that people should be paying attention to. As we kind of get close to wrapping up this show, do you see those other people from your perspective, people that are doing things that you've noticed and you just can't help but be impressed with? Is there someone out there that you want to give a shout out to?
Oh, all the time. And it's very interesting to hear when people like say they wish where I am. And maybe you talk about your gratitude thing. That's something I need to work on myself, because sometimes I'm only focused on the negative things. Actually, a lot of times where where it's helped me in my career, where it's like, oh my God, I'm not here yet. I have to get there. I have to get there. But very rarely do I look back at the things I've done and that I've accomplished. And, for me, I feel like such a failure all the time, which is not, I guess, fair to me. But I just always look at myself, I just always I dream a lot. I keep track of dreams sometimes.
Yeah.
And my dreams are always like real to me, where they seem like they're me in the future or anything. And I kind of lose track of, the journey that I've had up until this point. And I feel sorry about, I feel awkward confronting that as well. I don't like complimenting myself. Um, I don't like rewarding myself too much. I don't like doing anything like that.
Sure.
Because I never feel like I deserve it in a way. But people who do deserve it. I mean, there's a ton of creators out there who, I think make better content than I do. That might be they might be smaller in their following, but I don't think I make anywhere near the best content in this space. I look at a guy like Britton, the Charlotte guy. I
Yeah.
think he makes way better videos than I do.
He's funny.
But he's such a nice kid. Or not kid. I think he's like around my age. I don't want to call him a kid. But I've had good conversations with him, and there's a bunch of guys out there. Some people you just announced with goals is GOLZtv.
Yeah.
They've I met them at the soccer convention in Anaheim at the start of the year. Such nice people, and I've been tapped in with their content. I love how they kind of have a mixture between League MX and MLS thing. Where I'm very one-sided on that. It's nice to hear fans from both, or fans of both. There's another Gerardo. He does Charlotte football. He's just starting, and even though he's an LAFC guy, clearly, because of his cover photo, I think he's amazing, and I think he makes great videos. I actually just went on his show somewhat recently. There's definitely more out there that I could think of. Try and think of general, U.S. soccer people.
Yeah.
And then obviously, I mean, I love what you've done for the space and the way that you've cultivated a community as well. I mean, it is really awesome to see this happening. And I wish nothing but the best for GOLZtv. And, I hope that you guys, get to where you want to go.
I appreciate that
100%. Especially because, every conversation I've had with you, I mean, we may not talk very actively or very often, but when we do, like, I feel like I have some of my best conversations with creators in the community when it's with you. That's why when you asked me to do a part 2 of this show, I was like, fuck yeah. Like I want to talk with you. I'm intrigued by that. And then, we talked about content guys, and then also just writers, Justin Ruderman, Fabian Rankel. I mean, they're absolutely smashing it. And they're two people human beings that I just love so much as people. And like, I'm rooting for them as hard as you possibly can. And for me, it really, is about lifting each other up as a community. We're not competing with each other. There's no, only one of us can make it type of situation, because there's never gonna, in a successful, country, or in a successful field, there's never one person doing it and everyone else is, fighting for that spot. There's never one spot. I'd like there to be spots, because I feel like there isn't even spots right now. Just on my personal stuff, I feel like there's no spots out there, but I really, for me, it's about lifting each other up. And, I love doing these shows where I talk with other creators that are doing similar things. And, I've had creators, wish me well. And I've also had other creators in the space not wish me well and kind of be like, hey, I am your competitor. I want to take you down. And I'm like, geez, like we're here together. Like there's no I in team, I guess, even if we're not working together at a job, we're still the same. We're in the same space. We got to raise each other up as much as possible. And for me, I wish I had this quote on me, because there was some sort of quote that really resonated with me that I posted on my Instagram story a while back. But it was something about, people only try to compete against the people that compete against each other are the ones at the bottom. The people who are at the top lift each other up.
Yeah.
That was kind of the essence of I said that poorly, but that was the essence of the quote. And that's how I feel. And, lately, I'd say since the rebrand, or just like this year, I've kind of not been as in tune with everyone in the community, because just for mental health purposes, I've not been active online anymore.
Sure.
I post still. I mean, you see my posts, but when I'm not posting my videos or posting, when I'm not posting my videos or anything, I'm really not talking to anyone anymore. That's not like, I hate everyone. It's the opposite. It's more just like, I don't want to have to deal with negativity. And it's, it comes with what I do. Especially, being so vocal about supporting a certain club and having a big fan base that supports your rival, and, they need a villain, so they choose you. But, it's, I just, I don't respond to comments anymore on Instagram or Twitter. I mute most accounts on Twitter. And I, Twitter in general, I post on there, and I have Tom Bogert as post notifications, and that's really it for me on Twitter, because he kind of feeds my family of 1,000 with his tweets every day, because half my video topics are just from his tweets. But and he's aware of that, and he knows how much he means to me. But that's kind of where I'm at with social media, where my life is social media, but that doesn't mean I have to spend my life on social media.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I agree, man, wholeheartedly. There's so much good about what you just said there, and I think that again, these are all just massive inflection points, not just for us too as we have this conversation, but for anybody who's tuning in. Like, there's whether you're trying to again build up a niche space, like, and I'll still consider it niche because in my opinion, it's still very much in its infancy. We'll see where it all goes, but soccer's still there, and there's plenty of others, right? They're trying to do similar things in other spaces that I imagine are just feeling in a very similar way to how you have felt throughout this entire journey. This journey that, in a lot of ways, it's years long. It is exponentially longer than most of us who have been in this space. And so when you think about that, man, I look at you and everything that you've done, and I feel like there's so much that we can all learn from, but equally, there's just so much to kind of sit back and admire. And I hope that you do more of that as you continue to kind of go down your journey. Because I know when I look at creators and I think about who, not who I want to emulate, but really who I want to look for as inspiration, you're in that group 1,000%. I think that's the case for a lot of us, man. So keep doing what you do, Eli. I think this rebrand is going to create some very interesting opportunities for you, because I can confidently say there are plenty of leagues who do not think the way that MLS thinks. And I think that anybody who tunes into you regularly can see that you add a ton of value for this very small but yet growing American soccer audience, man. So before we wrap up, because this was a great conversation, any final shout outs, anybody that you want to kind of just, kind of point at before we wrap things up?
I feel like I shouted out a lot of them with just talking about like content guys that I love in the space, but like follow all of those people, follow everyone you see in the space. It's good to disagree with people as well. If you see a creator that you might, dislike a lot of their takes, for me, like I dislike a lot of what Tactical Manager has to say, but I'm Filippo's friend. He and I are homies. Like we're good friends. I'm tuned in with what he does, that it's important for the growth. We can't all have the same opinion. That's stupid.
Agreed.
And then if you want to, get into the space, content in general is 90% copied from someone else. And it's about that 10% of you that you put into it that differentiates yourself from everywhere. For me, if you, my shout outs, follow me on all platforms, Eli Lesser TV. Definitely subscribe to YouTube, because I hope to be doing more on there soon. Definitely follow Orange County Soccer on Instagram, on Twitter, and all those places, and Drink a Body Armor. And then also make sure you're following GOLZtv on all platforms, even though I'm sure if you're watching this now, you probably already are. But something special is definitely brewing with you and your gang, Jose. I love it a lot. And yeah, I'd be happy to hop on a show with you anytime. And yeah, just, keep doing what you're doing, because you're doing such great things. I mean, you have a partnership with USL Championship. Like, that's awesome. That's a massive league. No matter who what the Euro snobs from other countries try to tell you, USL is a massive, that's a huge accomplishment. And, I'm proud to, you wanted to have me on to see my growth from the past year, but, we didn't talk enough about like the growth you've had in this time too, because I love the post that you were saying the other day about the short form content. Is that something you want to dive into and stuff? I love that you're going through these things, because these are the same things that I was going through, and I understand that on such like a deeper level than just the random person on Twitter scrolling by. It is about establishing your brand and what you're for and about. So I love how you're going through that, and it's only just gonna bring greatness to what you do.
I appreciate that, man. Sincerely. It does. It means a whole lot more than you know. And I'm trying to get into this mode where I can be more comfortable, kind of battling some of my mental questions or insecurities in public, just because I feel like, I don't know, I'm almost solely attached to this project with GOLZtv. And, the project is about propping up other creators. And so, I think if we're going to build this thing right, if we're going to grow soccer in general in America, right, I can't pretend to have all the answers, and I need to be okay with just being open, honest with everyone, give them a chance to give me real feedback, even if it means it's not in the direction that I want it to go. And so that's my sole intent with those videos. But they're going to keep coming, just like your content's going to keep coming, Eli. And look, for anybody who's tuned into this part of the episode, thank you so much for tuning in. This is Eli Lesser's part 2 of Box to Box. I'm so excited that we did this. And look, there's going to be a part 3 somewhere down the road. I feel very, very strong about that. There's going to be a part where we get an update. And I got a feeling when that update happens, man, I think you're going to be much closer to where you want to be. I feel like you're working towards that in a really big way. And I'm trying to channel some of that positive energy your way, man. So again, go follow Eli Lesser TV. You start with YouTube, work your way through all the social platforms from there. And if you're not already subscribed to GOLZtv, drop us a subscription down below, like the video. And again, tune into these stories. These stories are massive, not just for me, but for anybody who's looking to try and break into content creation, or more importantly, grow the beautiful game stateside. So from everybody here at Box to Box and GOLZtv, my name's Jose. That's Eli. We'll catch you guys next time.